Well, good morning, everyone. Michelle, thank you very much. And John, I have to say that after hearing your presentation, now I realize why I was not destined to be a science major in college. But we are delighted to be here this morning, and obviously very, very proud of the partnership that we've had with the NJBIA over the last number of years relative to Innovation New Jersey, which has now grown to more than 100 businesses, industry groups, higher education institutions, and state government agencies, all of whom are dedicated to promoting policies and initiatives that foster a robust, innovation-driven economy here in New Jersey. And I would be remiss if I did not recognize my colleague, Haskell Berman, who has been instrumental in the founding and the management of Innovation New Jersey. Let's give Haskell a hand. So, as Michelle mentioned, I represent the Healthcare Institute of New Jersey, colloquially known as HINGE, and we represent the state's life sciences community, which is comprised of companies in the biopharmaceutical, biotechnology, medical technology, and device and diagnostic sectors. Our mission as an industry is to research, develop, and bring to patients in the global healthcare marketplace cutting-edge, life-enhancing, and life-saving medicines, therapies, technologies, and devices. And of course, the fuel that propels this is innovation, and innovation ecosystem and environment that enables our companies to flourish. And if I can borrow from a popular commercial these days, our keynote speaker knows a thing or two about innovation. It's my pleasure to have the honor of introducing a good friend and great supporter of both Hinge and of our industry and the state of New Jersey, Bob Hugan. I've had the pleasure of working with Bob for many years. Bob is currently the executive chairman of Celgene Corporation, and prior thereto, he served as Celgene's chief executive officer from June 2010 until February of this year. Headquartered in Summit and with a network of offices and operations that extend to more than 50 countries on 5 continents, Celgene is a biopharmaceutical company that is focused on the discovery, development, and commercialization of innovative therapies for unmet medical needs in cancer and immunoinflammatory disease. Bob joined Celgene in June 1999 and has been director of the company since December 2001. He is past chairman of the board of the Pharmaceutical Research and Manufacturers of America, or PhRMA, as well as of Hinge. Bob currently serves on a number of boards, including those of Princeton University, his alma mater, the Danaher Corporation, the Medicines Company, the Darden Foundation, the University of Virginia, Atlantic Health System, and Family Promise, which is a national nonprofit network that assists homeless families. Prior to joining Celgene, Bob was a managing director with J.P. Morgan and Company. As I mentioned a moment ago, Bob is a Princeton alum, having received his A.B. degree in 1976 and an MBA from the University of Virginia in 1985. During the intervening period, he served as a United States Marine Corps infantry officer. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Bob Hugan.
Thank you, Dean, so much for the introduction. Thank you, Michelle. I want to tell you that I hope you get a flu shot. I got the flu before I got the flu shot, and so please don't confuse my voice for any lack of enthusiasm or excitement or actually honor. My pleasure to be with you this morning, but I apologize in advance for my voice. I do want to echo some of the things that Michelle said and thank the organizers for this event. I think bringing people together from diverse perspectives to really tackle some of the most important issues that face our state and the ecosystem of innovation in New Jersey is critical. We're not going to find creative solutions if we don't bring people, again, from different backgrounds with different perspectives and together to tackle these problems and opportunities. And so thank you for organizing the event. It's important, and thank you all for taking the time to really think about these issues and look for solutions to help all of the citizens of our state and the people, especially that we work with. I also have to tell you, it's a great pleasure to be here. I have the opportunity, and sometimes that's a challenge, I guess, to travel in many different countries and many different parts of our country. And it's always great to come home to New Jersey. I grew up in New Jersey. I did leave for a while, but I've lived in Summit now for 25 years. And despite all the challenges of New Jersey, it's a special place. And so it's great to be with people who are from New Jersey and care about New Jersey. And today, my message and the format is for me to give some remarks about issues that I think hopefully are relevant to some of you in the audience, but to leave time for questions and answers at the end, so we really do focus on the issues that are most important to you, and hopefully my comments will stimulate some of those questions. My responsibility or my opportunity today really is to convey a message of hope, optimism, and encouragement for all of you. And I think the way I hope to do that a little bit is to talk a little bit about the Celgene story. And I think that if you're sitting there today and saying, you know, Celgene today is an $80 billion market cap company, operations all over the world, and we've been incredibly fortunate. But there have been so many times in the history of Celgene that I'm sure you would never trade your position today with where Celgene was in many, many times in our existence. And so I think it's a great story about what it takes to persevere and achieve the kind of goals that make such a difference in society, and the things that you all are doing today and aspiring to do in some cases. So really, if Celgene can be successful, I think there's great opportunity for all of us to achieve great things. So Celgene, in fact, this year we're celebrating our 30th anniversary. I'm in my 18th year at Celgene, and it's been quite a story. And when you think about the changes in our company was formed to do water purification, to break up the PCBs in the Hudson River that General Electric and other people had caused all these problems. And we had a great technology of bioenzymatic catalysis that was going to break up those PCBs, and the technology sort of worked, but nobody wanted to pay for it, so it was sold for $1. And the other business that the company was founded to do was to make chiral intermediates for pharmaceutical companies, to take racemic compounds and make them into chirally pure isomers and sell those intermediates. That business was sold to a chemical company after I joined Celgene, and we only got paid half of it. We never even got paid the second half of it. And so when you think about the story of Celgene, Celgene persevered for 17 years before it turned profitable. 17 years. And it wasn't with, I don't think it could have survived 17 years if it had been with some of the most astute investors in the world and venture capital firms. In fact, when I joined Celgene, it was 90% retail investors, people who had a hope and a dream that maybe something real could come out of this, and had either no choice, because I guess they really couldn't sell the stock. In fact, when the company went public, it never reached the IPO price for 12 years. So options expired worthless after 10 years of people devoting themselves to everything they could possibly do in terms of the terrible challenges. As you know, in startup companies, it's a survival mentality, which it can be very stimulating, but it also is a very challenging environment, and for many different reasons. And Celgene lived through the shadow of death on many, many occasions. In fact, when I joined the company, we had 6 weeks of cash left. And so, and we did some of these terrible, we called them death spiral converts, that, you know, every time stock went up a penny, that triggered another warrant to come in, and they'd sell and drive the stock down. The stock could never go up. So many, many challenges. And you think about how hard it is to hire people when everyone says you're going to fail. The first 3 years I was at Celgene, we were ranked as one of the top 10 companies in the United States to go bankrupt. And so there wasn't this great, clear vision that said, these people are going to do great things and make great things happen. So I tell you that because it is often, when you're thinking about trying to engage in risky propositions, taking the personal risk, the financial risk, to really try and do something transformational and disruptive, that you have to know you have many kindred spirits out there that know what it's like to live through those dark days and the challenges, And you can't be afraid to reach out and commiserate and collaborate with others and find ways to work your way through that. I do want to pass along a couple of the things that I think have been important in Celgene's development that helped us move forward and create success out of the opportunities that were available to us. First is that what became increasingly clear to us over the years is that mission and vision matters. People want to believe, but you have to be clear. What are you seeking to achieve? What impact are you seeking to have on terms of society or the issues that you're facing? And you have to communicate that because of the risks that people are taking personally and financially. To engage them, they have to believe that every day what they do is going to make a difference when they're successful. The other thing that I think that Celgene evidenced over the years, and some people have this capability, and I think in some ways it can be learned, is turning adversity into opportunity. You meet some people and something goes wrong, and it's a horrible, horrible event. And that's natural human nature. I'm that way. People bring me bad news. I tell them, you better leave me alone for a couple of hours because I'm not going to take this too well. But after that, you have to see beyond that. And you have to say, this is disruptive. Maybe not just for me, maybe for others. This is going to change the rules of the game. How do I convert this into opportunity that changes this, what appears to be a terrible event? And there are some very tangible events in Celgene's history that really have become incredible competitive advantages that the initial observation was one of terrible, maybe even death to the corporation kind of events that happened in regulatory events, et cetera, that were turned into incredible competitive advantages for the company. The other thing that I would tell you is that in all of our organizations, our probability of success increases as we intensify the learning culture that we have. That it is the people today who are learners are the ones that are going to make the difference in the future. It isn't the people who say, I know what I need to know. It's the people who live in the world, they're present, they engage people, they engage events, and they think about what's happening, and they build an increasing skill set to be able to take on, to maximize the opportunities that present to themselves in the future, and to deal with the challenges. Lifetime learning is a culture that needs to be part of dynamic, innovative, changing organizations. And people who don't think that way are going to be left behind. Because 3 years from now, things are going to be more challenging, more competitive. And if you think the capabilities you have today to be successful are going to be successful in the future, you're going to be left behind. People who are not always convinced that we've got to strive to become better individuals, better teams, and better organizations. The other thing I'd say is that you have to not be afraid to have individual impact. Teams matter, but individuals make great teams. And the persistence of few individuals who will drive and drive and drive and not be afraid to say, we're going to continue to do this because we believe in it. It's easy to throw the towel in. It's hard to continue to do things when it's not so clear what that light at the end of the tunnel really is. And so, and again, 17 years of not making a profit, and yet today being one of the most profitable companies in the world is a testament to the people who said, we will persevere and we will continue to drive people to do the things that need to get done. And I think the other thing that I think about Celgene is that it's okay to dream. It's okay to be aspirational. I tell a story. In 2008, for 7 years, there were 3 of us that ran Celgene, John Jackson, Saul Berra, and myself, and it was probably 7 of the greatest years of my life. The 3 of us became very close personal friends, did investments outside of Celgene, but had a great trajectory of Celgene. And in 2003, We had our second analyst day ever as a company, and we were in the Grand Hyatt Hotel in New York City on 42nd Street, and Sol and I were standing in the back of the room, and we had done most of the slides of the day, and John Jackson, who was the chairman and CEO at the time, was doing the last slide. And so Sol and I were standing in the back, and said, Sol said, "Did you do that PowerPoint slide?" I said, "No, I didn't do it." He said, "Did you do it?" He goes, "No, I didn't do it. John doesn't do the PowerPoint." But he must have done this one slide to close this analyst day. And he's talking about Celgene in 2008. And Celgene in 2008 is going to be this and to that. And during that last 12 months, the revenues for Celgene had been around $200 million. And analysts had high projections as much as $750 million in revenues in 2008. And so then John ends the slide by saying, and in 2008, Celgene is going to have revenues of $1.5 billion. And Sol and I went back to him, what's he talking about? What was wrong with $750 million? We were incredibly happy with that. And so we said, well, clearly John doesn't expect to be here in 2008. And he did retire at the end of 2005. But, and in that aspirational goal that John set, included partnerships and M&A or anything else was in there. In 2008, we beat that goal by 29% without any mergers or acquisition, without additional products that we acquired. We beat it by 43% under the terms that John described that people thought was unattainable. So don't be afraid to dream. Don't be afraid to be aspirational. People will not produce superior results. If you want to be mediocre, set high goals. Set good goals if you want to be mediocre. But if you want to do superior things, you have to set aspirational goals. And if you want to drive innovation, you want to drive creativity, people have to believe in that intensity and the urgency that's needed to achieve those great things. And today, Celgene also benefited from being in New Jersey, despite the challenges of New Jersey. We took advantage of the tax loss carry forward program that Senator Bob Singer and others put forth in New Jersey, where unprofitable companies could sell their New Jersey corporate tax losses to profitable New Jersey companies, and 90 cents on the dollar, basically. Allowed us to have non-dilutive financing. We didn't survive only because of that, but it certainly helped us be less dilutive in some financing. We were able to take advantage of BEEP grants and BRAG grants, and so I think recognizing the environment and working with partners in the state to find ways. We used our agricultural subsidiary, which doesn't exist anymore. It was in the New Jersey Technology Center in New Brunswick. That we took advantage of those opportunities to try, and we were actually one of the first tenants there. So there are things that companies need to be external looking to ensure you're taking advantage of all the things in your environment, so you maximize your opportunities, that you recognize that if you think you're going to do everything yourself, you're limiting yourself and not taking advantage of all the resources that are available to you. Before we open it up to Q&A, I want to reinforce some of the points that were already made in the introductory remarks, that I do think it's important for all of us to be more stronger, more forceful advocates for the issues about an innovation ecosystem in New Jersey. It's important to the people of New Jersey. If we do not create this, the economic future of this state is going to be seriously diminished and in a very difficult situation. We already have tremendous financial issues in the state in the long term. But if we don't really come together and advocate for the kind of policies that are needed, the future could be very challenging in New Jersey. It's tough, and I'm going to tell you some of the things that make it tough. So the first thing I want to say is that I think organizations like NJBIA and Hinge are important for us to support, because they do give a voice to us, to many of us that don't have the time or the resources to advocate for the issues that are so fundamental for economic growth and prosperity and job creation in New Jersey, that we don't have the ability to do that. So we need to support the people that have the responsibility and the opportunity to do those things. At the same time, where I could not be more supportive of the organizations, I have to tell you that in my experience, individuals matter in this case also. State legislators, federal legislators are impacted and influenced by individual people who tell them their story, who are not part of a big lobbying group, who recognize that they care about the communities that they come from and the people they serve and the employees in their company, et cetera, and the future employees and the future prosperity. And individuals matter. Your story matters. You can make a difference in ensuring that the public policies we have are robustly discussed, and your opinion is included, and your thoughts and the people you represent, those lives, the impact it's going to have. There are issues that we have to stand up and talk about. I'll give you an example. Our company is not impacted by the minimum wage discussions. Just because of the context of the type of people we hire, we don't have an issue of the kind of salary levels that will be impacted by a minimum wage discussion. But I was with somebody yesterday who was telling me, who was on the board of the YMCA. It's going to cost the YMCA $300,000, and they're going to be forced to cut out the programs for the underprivileged kids in the neighborhood. Those are the programs that are going to get cut out by having to pay so I think whatever the issue is, and the issue to me that I'm going to tell you is so important to me, that I can't fathom how people don't recognize it, is the high cost of personal income taxes in New Jersey. And the issue with me is I am fortunate. I can pay the high income taxes, and I choose to live in New Jersey, and I make that decision, that personal decision for myself and my family. But don't think that companies are going to bring a 300-person division to New Jersey when the person leading that division, and those jobs are making $80,000, $90,000, maybe $100,000, many of those jobs. And the great thought leaders in New Jersey will tell you, well, those people aren't paying the 9.5%, 10% surcharge income tax. They're only going to pay 4%, 3%. The problem is those jobs don't come when the $300,000 to $400,000 division manager is going to pay those, when other states are going to pay 3 or 4%. The difference in savings of 5 or 6% is the total annual savings for someone's budget and savings. And if the difference in the taxes means there's no savings, and if the leader doesn't come to New Jersey, the division isn't coming to New Jersey. And people who don't think that we're hurt competitively by the tax structure, whether it's property taxes, corporate income tax, there's been a lot of positive work to been done about that, which I think makes New Jersey not unattractive to companies. But the other issues, and if you believe in the future of what it's going to take for this state, we have to be stronger advocates for the kind of public policy and legislation that's needed to have the kind of economic growth to make New Jersey the innovation issue. The one other thing I want to say with the universities that are here, it gives me great optimism, because if you think about what's happened in Boston and California and other places, it's because of the collaborative spirit of Harvard and MIT and how they work together, and with Boston University and other organizations up there. In California, the integrated systems with Stanford and UCSF and those issues have created incredible ecosystems. New Jersey was a disaster. Today, I think Rutgers is doing great things, the merger of the medical school into the university. I think Princeton is a much more outward-looking university today that really wants to be a constructive partner in helping build the ecosystem to leverage the research that's done there. All of the other universities in the state, I think, are working. We've got to continue to support that. We need to encourage them to do those kinds of things, because the research that's done in great institutions are what create the kind of minds and ideas that are going to help us build the innovation ecosystem in New Jersey. So lots of great progress there. So I appreciate the opportunity to be with you. I hope we have a chance to spend some time together and and find ways to work together. We're always looking for new ideas. We're a business that we become obsoleted in average every 5 to 6 years technologically. Our patents expire. We've got to reinvent ourselves on a regular basis. So we need to collaborate. We need to find new great ideas. And so thank you very much for inviting me today and sharing a little bit of our message with you. And we have a few minutes left to open it up for questions that you might feel interested in asking. So thank you very much. I can repeat the question.
Yeah, the question is, if I understood Dean correctly, Bob, you joined the armed services after. You joined the armed services after school, after college. I'm just curious, A, why you did that, and then B, how that helped with your professional career.
I've been a very blessed person. I grew up in Union City, New Jersey, right where the Lincoln Tunnel comes in New Jersey, and I was the first person in my high school history, Emerson High School, to go to Princeton. And because of, I had a good family, but because of the economic background, even those days I had very little loans. So I was a blessed person. And it was the end of the Vietnam War. The society was very polarized. And I thought I was just so fortunate a person and that I thought I owed my country service. So I joined the Marine Reserves, and then I went on active duty, and they offered me a 2.5-year obligation. And I worked with such charismatic leaders. I ended up staying on active duty for 7 years, and then 7 years in reserves after it. And like all parts of my life, I've been so lucky to have grown up in Union City. I'm so lucky to have gone to Princeton. I'm so lucky to have been in the Marine Corps. I'm so lucky to have gone to the University of Virginia. I've been lucky every place I've been. And the Marine Corps certainly was a great experience for me because I worked for charismatic leaders who believed in creative solutions and the impact of individuals and the responsibility, 30-year-old person believing that the lives of 42 other individuals' lives depended on the leadership that you provided and the training that you did. And so I think that I've been so fortunate to be impacted in so many different ways, but certainly the Marine Corps is an important part of my life, and hopefully my kids share some of that same vision, the importance of service and to country, and so it's great leadership lessons and experience has been incredibly helpful to me.
Okay, after 17 years of not being governed, was there a breaking event or seasonal event?
Yeah, I have to tell you, we could have been profitable after 16 years, but we delayed it because we wanted to make sure that it would be sustainable. We were not so yet convinced, but no, it obviously we were very fortunate to discover a great drug, Revlimid, and as that drug, as we continue to invest in it and continue to invest in it today, it demonstrated increasing impact on patients, and so we were confident that we should, now we need to start demonstrating that we can commercialize and prove that we can create the kind of cash flow that justifies all the years of investments that people made in giving us the opportunity to build the company.
So, from your industry perspective, can you tell us your views of how you feel that universities and industry can work together in order to create the innovative environment that you've been talking about?
Yes, I think universities are some of the greatest treasures of our country. And when you think about the competitive advantage of our country versus any other country in the world, you look at our economic performance post-2008 versus Europe, it really, the biomedical innovation crown jewel of our economy, academic medical centers, basic research universities, corporations that are focused on research. And corporations spend multiples of what NIH spends on research, but that whole ecosystem really differentiates the entire U.S. economy. And so we have to be very careful that we don't lose that crown jewel that is a great differentiator for America. And I think that we need to, I'm encouraged by the signals of more trust and more collaboration. I think that that I think universities have to recognize that to get the full impact of the inventions and discoveries that they may make, they need to collaborate. They don't have the skill sets, the capabilities to optimize and achieve the full impact of inventions. And at the same time, I think that industry needs to recognize broadly that that kind of collaborative spirit needs to recognize the value that universities create, and there needs to be very fair and appropriate economic arrangements so that the skill sets, the value that's created is recognized and rewarded. So I'm encouraged by what we say. I do hope, one of the things that we just did at Celgene is did a collaboration with Columbia Cancer Center, Mount Sinai Cancer Center, Hopkins Cancer Center, and University of Pennsylvania Cancer Center, where they're going to work together. And they're going to compete for an invention, but once the invention is made, they're going to say, listen, bioinformatics is better at Columbia than it is at Penn. So let's do the bioinformatics for this project at Columbia. They're going to share in the intellectual property. All 4 universities will share equally in the intellectual property. They're going to share equally in any royalties that happen. And it's a great breakthrough that say we not only have to cooperate between industry and universities, but universities need to say the economic challenges we have in our society today with the aging population and the fiscal issues that brings to our societies, we have to eliminate redundancy that does not affect invention. We have to ensure that we don't have everybody doing everything that they don't need to do, that is not fundamental to the discovery that's going to be made in the areas where they have a competitive advantage or they're investing in basic research. So I think we have to recognize how fortunate we are, but we recognize that the world is changing. We've got to evolve our models to ensure that we preserve those basic values that really differentiate the culture and the American system. But we don't lose that by not recognizing that we can't afford the redundancies and duplications in areas that don't affect that. And so the basic invention issues. So it's a very exciting time, but we have to be outspoken because people want to work in silos. They want to do everything themselves, whether it's an industry or et cetera. And we have to, as leaders, not allow that. We have to shine the light of day on it and challenge people about it. Otherwise, we won't produce the kind of inventions and innovations that are necessary to solve the incredible challenges that we have as a society. And I have to tell you one other thing real quickly because I know I only have 1 minute left. I don't go anywhere where I don't talk about drug pricing because you read about it in the paper every day. And I want to tell you a couple of things that I'll ask you as a favor. Don't believe everything you read. And that the issues are complex. There are bad actors like Martin Shkreli and other people. They're not the innovators. They're the people that are just taking advantage of things. They're not research organizations. So you got to be careful, one, to differentiate who we're talking about that are really making a difference in biomedical innovation, the people that are investing in research. And we've got to put that aside. And you have to recognize that it's a complex issue. And it's one that we should talk about all the time. And we shouldn't be afraid to talk about it. And that the facts are more complicated. I was at an Aspen Institute event last night on healthcare issues. People are talking about the government should negotiate drug prices. The fact is, you could talk to Peter Orszag, who was President Obama's first chief budget officer, but negotiation of the government of drug prices will lead to higher drug prices. Medicare Part D, which is the first oral prescription drug coverage under Medicare for senior citizens, only been in place 10 years. The average discount is 30%. The government, when it negotiates, gets 23% discount. So I ask you, this issue is important for us because as an industry, the only thing that fuels the research that we do is the revenue that we get from existing products. And those products are going to go generic. And the people are going to get it for pennies on the dollar for generations, if those are real inventions like the drugs that we have at Celgene, are going to make a difference in patients' lives for 100 years. And for 85 of those years, people are going to get it for pennies on the dollar. We have to be careful. And I just ask you to be thoughtful, engage in a discussion. Don't believe every headline you have. Doesn't mean you shouldn't challenge. There are things that we need to do better, but there's things we all need to understand better to ensure that we have good public policy. So listen, thanks for having me. Have a great day, and I appreciate being with you.